I think this will help with
We can share it, can't we?
there we go.
It's like a joint we got going on here.
Tell me what it was like to be taken out of, a northeastern American city and find yourself living with a bunch of Rasta in Kingston, Jamaica.
Well, I should really be asking you that question. What the hell is a white man like you doing in Jamaica? All these black folks, Rasta, nappy-headed people keeping us informed exactly what's going on in the reggae Rasta world of Jamaica. Well, like you, I was lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to meet the three of them and realize the rich quality of their music and songwriting and how different I was from them and how they changed my life like they changed your life. And it all was just magic. It just all came together. Had nothing to do with Jersey, my mother and father. It's just heaven sent that I was lucky enough to bring some American culture into reggae music and just changing the beat a little bit.
It's amazing to me, Al, how many people around the world consider the greatest Bob Marley song of all time to be No Woman, No Cry. In Australia a couple of years ago, 80% of the people we asked, what's your favorite Marley track, said No Woman, No Cry, and you play that exquisite lead guitar on that song.
Yeah, I was very lucky. It's Bob was not easy.
Yeah, you can clap that.
Bob was not so easy to work with. He had his own way. As you can see, even here, he was the lion of leadership. He wanted to take control of everything and be the leader and we the ones to follow. Being that the three of them were such incredible songwriters that they didn't want to do that anymore and they needed to show their talents as well as the competitiveness between the three of them. So I ended up working with Bob for a number of years and not liking the way the very successful life and all the great things that comes with success made things kind of sour for me. And I decided to switch over and play with Peter Tosh to make a big change in my life musically. Peter's music is completely different from Bob's. It's a different, they were three guys that were crawling out of the world. And nobody won in terms of who's better, because I think Bunny, everybody knows here, Black Heart Man, is the most incredible album ever made in reggae music, without a doubt. And Bob had a great ability to lead people, and we followed him all the way to his journey now.
You're on Equal Rights, right?
I'm on Equal Rights and Legalize.
You know that great Equal Rights cover with all the pictures of Peter Tosh on it? The woman who took that is here with us tonight. Kim Gottlieb, please stand up and let people say that. After all these years, she has her book about to come out called Bob Marley and the Golden Age of Reggae, with text by Cameron Crowe. Her husband, Jeff Walker, Bob's publicist at the time, brought down to Jamaica in the mid-70s, and yours truly, and Jeff himself, who we'll talk about in a minute here. We're so pressed for time, I wish we could have an hour just you and I talking, but will you tell people, please, what are the plans in the future for the Wailers band?
The Wailers have taken on a whole nother place in the world for us. After losing such a great leader like Bob, we've been like lost sheep, and we're looking for a shepherd, and we found a great guy. His name is Desi Hyson. I'm working with Junior Marvin. The name of our group is called Toe. It's called the Original Wailers. I've got the original Wailers CD right here. It's coming out probably August. We just finished it recording 2 weeks ago. We're down to mastering and some mixing. We have an album coming out on Sony Disney in Japan first. You'll be the first to get the copy, Roger.
Then we'll give it to Chuck Foster out there to play on Reggae Central. Stand up, Chuck, let people see you. Chuck Foster.
Before Bob passed, I had the opportunity to spend a long month with him, and I was one of the first and last members of the band to leave him. and he told me to keep the music on a standard, do whatever you have to do to survive to make the Wailers' name shine with or without me. He didn't know that he was going on his voyage, and we didn't know either. It was a very strange time for us, and we were looking forward to him to get better. And he told me to continue the band and make sure the family man and Carly stayed together, and Tyrone stayed out of trouble, and Junior on his best behavior, and the same for me. But unfortunately, we couldn't pull the band together at that time, and we've been able to pull a group together to represent what Peter, Bob, and Bunny left to us as the prophets of reggae music. So I look forward to the TOE album, and TOE stands for The Original Wailers, and there's several of us in the band that didn't play with Peter, Bob, and Bunny. But it's the standard and the meaningful, thoughtful words that they said that we are reminiscing in our music. So I hope you look forward to an album in August, TOE, The Original Wailers.
We're sure glad you're doing it. Thank you, Alan. But wait, there's more. There's only one person in the history of Bob Marley's recording career that he produced outside of the Wailers family. And it was a beautiful album in 1975 called Escape from Babylon by a New Yorican woman and an actress who was in Hair and had quite a few successful albums on the Sire label, and she went to the label owner and he said, if you could have any producer in the world produce your next record, who would it be? And she said, Bob Marley. And he agreed to do it. And I'd like you to say hello to her because she's here with us tonight. Come on up here. What was that like?
Well, you can imagine. I have to say that when I went to Jamaica, I had already recorded 3 albums, and the first one was with Eric Clapton and the Cream, and
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. And that was an extraordinary experience, and I was very lucky to be a part of that, time frame, that piece of the universe. But when I went to Jamaica to work with Bob Marley, I had no idea what I was walking into and what it was like. I didn't. And it was a wondrous experience for me. It really touched a part of me that I carried with me all my life. It was something that was different from making any other record I had ever made. It was an organic, evolutionary process. And I have tons of stories to tell you. We don't have time for all these stories. But I can tell you something about Lee Scratch Perry, because we ended up recording in his studio. And this was in '75, so they must have patched up by then. Bob and he. And Lee Perry, I had Harry J. Studios, right? And there was a one-way mirror. So when you walked into the lobby, it was a one-way mirror, and somebody was checking you out to make sure you could come in. And then a door would open that was underneath the one-way mirror, and you crawled in it and got into the studio. And it was a phenomenal place to create and make music. And I was very, very, very privileged and humbled by the extraordinary gift that Bob Marley gave me to allow me into that space. We wrote a song together. It was called Disco Night. And I've been working 10 days a week just to make ends meet, and that was the case at the time. And he had to give the credit to Rita Marley so that his publishing would be protected. There were so many stories. I mean, he was in the Pink House at that point that Chris Blackwell sold to him. And in the back, as Al knows, there was a rehearsal area. And they called it the Chicken Shack, right? And we worked in there and rehearsed in there. And the most extraordinary thing for me was to watch Bob Marley write a song. And it was just from the heart, starting with just sounds, you know, woo, 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 you know, whatever was coming out of him, and then moving from that into a word, a pattern, a phrase, and then everybody picked up on it and moved into his rhythm. As Al says, you know, he controlled it, but he controlled it because he was such a vibrant spirit, such an incredible energy, that to be around this person was to feel like you needed to learn how to fly, and he was already doing it. So it was a miraculous time for me, and I'm very grateful for it, and I thank you for giving me this time to say it. Thank you.
I hope you won't be upset by my mentioning this, but I want to give these people a very groovy piece of trivia.
Okay.
You know the song "Jah Live" that Bob wrote to dispute the alleged death of Haile Selassie. On the single, there is a dub side, and it begins with this very high-pitched yodel, which Family Man told me was Bob imitating you clearing your throat. Can you do that yodel?
Yo! But I want to tell you one other little quick one.
Yeah.
Is that on an album that I did called Hypnotized, which was with Van Morrison's orchestra, I did a song called Living Outside the Law. And that's the song that he heard to agree to work with me, you know. And it was all about, you know, there's no peace in the alley till there's peace in, there's no peace in the valley till there's peace in the alley. Yeah. And at the end of it, we were just so hot on the track and just having such a great time that that's all I was doing. Whoa, you know, just nuts. But it was great, and it brought me Bob Marley. Right?
Thank you so much. Feeling good? Yeah. Bob's here, isn't he? We almost lost him in '76. In '75, he took on a new manager named Don Taylor, who underbooked him. When he could fill a 10,000-seat hall, he put him in a place for 2,000 people, and there was always a line of people who couldn't get in, and there were near riots at times. And he was making headlines on the front page of the paper instead of the music sections, and it was a clever deal on Don's part. 1976, he had his only top 10 album in America. It was called Rastaman Vibration. Had a different lineup. It had Earl Chinnis Smith and Donald Kinsey, the blues guitarist from Indiana, as the lead guitarist, just for that 1 year. And Bob had done very few shows in Jamaica, and he wanted to give something back to his own people. But before he had a chance to set something up, posters started appearing in October of 1976 around Kingston saying that Bob Marley was going to do a show on the Prime Minister's lawn, Michael Manley, the socialist. And to be associated publicly with a politician in Jamaica can be lethal. Both political parties, the JLP, the Jamaican Labour Party of the right wing, and Edward Seaga, versus the PNP, the People's National Party of Michael Manley, the Socialist Party, were sponsored by gangs. And election campaigns often saw hundreds and hundreds of people murdered. So Bob didn't want to be associated. He had lost faith in Michael Manley soon after Manley assumed the prime ministership in early 1972 because he didn't legalize marijuana, as a lot of Rasta were led to believe. And that's where those lines, never make a politician grant you a favor if he will only want to control you forever. And top rankin', are you skankin'? All of that's about the politricksters. Or as Peter Tosh says, the crime minister who should in the house of represent the thief. So Bob went to complain to Manley, and in the process, Manley said, okay, I'll give you Heroes Park Circle by the National Stadium, and you can do a show that will have nothing whatsoever to do with politics. And Bob said, all right, we'll do it that way. And immediately after, Michael Manley declared elections to be held following the concert. So he co-opted Bob. He made it appear that Bob was supporting his re-election. And Bob came under death threats from the right-wing party almost immediately. And for the next several weeks, Bob was under 24/7 guard by people in both gangs, until the evening of Friday, December 3rd, 1976, 2 nights before the concert named after his song Smile Jamaica was to be held. And about 8 o'clock that night, the guards who'd been with him day and night for weeks disappeared into the night, and a carload of 5 gunmen broke through the gate. Rita Marley was on her way out in the car. They jumped out and shot her in the head. They shot Bob, who was in the kitchen peeling a breadfruit, came right across his chest into his arm. If he'd been inhaling instead of exhaling, he probably would have died. Don Taylor, his manager, was shot 5 times in the groin. He did not throw his body in front of Bob to save his life, no matter who or what you've heard about that. He had no time to think. The gunman came in the back door, shot Taylor over here 5 times, turned to Bob and shot him, and ran away. No one was ever caught. There were 5 people involved. History has shown us that they were led by Jim Brown, who was one of the chief gunmen for the Jamaican Labour Party, the right-wing party. Taylor told me the story of what happened that night. He had 5 bullets in the groin, and they medevaced him to the university hospital. And he said, I could hear everything going on around me, but they put me on a gurney, and they thought I was dead, and they just pulled a sheet over me. And a doctor came in and said to the nurse standing by the gurney, who's that? And the nurse said, it's Don Taylor, Bob Marley's manager. He's dead. And Taylor said, I wanted to scream, I'm still alive! But he couldn't make his mouth move. And for some reason, the doctor pulls the sheet back and said, no, I think I see some signs of life. Let's transfuse some blood into him and see what we can do. The following morning, he was operated on and his life was saved. Bob's wounds were superficial. Rita had a bullet lodged in her skull between the skull bone and the brain, and was told it was inoperable and to lie flat on her back and not move. Bob took shelter after his wound was treated in Chris Blackwell's home in the hills above Jamaica, a place called Strawberry Hill. And for the next almost 48 hours, friends of Bob came up there to beg him not to do the concert. Surely, they said, if you do that show, they will come and finish you off. But there was a young man who was his publicity chief at Island Records at the time, named Jeff Walker, who was with him. And he said, Bob, you've got to make an appearance. If you don't, it will be just the same as if they had killed him. And Bob said, I'm not going down there without a weapon. And Jeff Walker said, Bob, your guitar is your machine gun. And if it weren't for Jeff Walker's foresight that night, we would never see the most extraordinary musical moment of the 20th century. And I want to invite him up on stage to talk about that. Jeff, come on up here for a second, please. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'd rather you told your story than me. So far, did I say the right thing?
Pretty close.
Okay. This may not be the truth, but let us use it as a fact. Professor Irwin Corey. Well, explain how you came to be there and film it when all the cameras that had been hired to film it left.
Oh boy, this is a long story.
Well,
I'm
tell
not
us
sure it's
a
going
short
to.
version.
We were pretty sure at that point that Bob was not going to be touring any time in the States soon, and because of the Smile Jamaica concert, we thought this